What's
Look,
up,
there's
people?
a burning one.
Here. Today I wanna take a moment and talk a bit about the Halberd and hopefully give you some tips on when and how to properly use it.
Let me try.
Now, as you all probably know, Halberd is an anti-vehicle long-range weapon which fires, well, rockets in a really slow rate of fire. It has a pretty decent alpha damage, much higher than the Enforcer and Soren, but it suffers from low rate of fire. Now, necessarily that's not a bad thing, because it one hits infantry at any range, meaning if you can score direct hits, you can pretty much use it as an anti-infantry weapon as well. You're just gonna need some practice. Now, first of all, what do you want inserted on it? What I want definitely to insert on it is the zoom, max level. This will help you immensely against enemy tanks at range, as well enemy infantry at all ranges. You'll be surprised how much the zoom will actually benefit you when it comes to aiming, because it will decrease your sensitivity just a bit, just when you need the most, when you're doing careful aim. And second of all, do you see this big crusher that the Halberd has? Now, that thing is a lot useful because of those bars that it has. In most cases you want to use the second bar from the top on your targets, unless you are attacking from a weird angle, then you might even aim a bit lower as well. Now, thing is, since this crusher is so huge, it will often obscure your vision. That's where zoom comes in, and it will allow you to have a better overview of the enemy target, notably infantry. Because most cases when you're aiming at the enemy infantry, the crusher is so huge you don't see the infantry because of the crusher. So definitely get zoom over thermal. And reload speed, I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory. There's no magazine size, so obviously you'll want to get the reload speed for more DPS. Okay, since when doesn't a direct... Now here I'm going to teach you how much you need to compensate for the bullet drop at different ranges. At point blank range you can just use the top bar to go for the headshot, or even the second bar to go for the body shot. Now at 50 meters the situation is pretty much the same, although I recommend get used to using the second bar, because in most cases it will mean a direct hit on the target. Headshots are not required to kill infantry, by the way. As you can see, even at 100 meters, second bar is more than enough to score direct hit on infantry. So I would say Halberd really isn't that hard to use once you get the hang of it, especially compensating for the bullet drop. Just use the second bar in most cases, and if it's not enough, then you can always aim a bit higher. Now on 150 meters, the second bar no longer nets you a headshot, but it still nets you a kill, because it's a direct body shot then. So second bar is still good enough. As you can see, even at 200 meter range, second bar still nets you direct hit, so keep using the second bar even at that range. As you can see here, even at 250 meters the second bar will score you a direct body shot. I do suggest that you aim for the center of the mass, that means for the chest or the middle of the target. Now at 300 meter range you have to use the third bar. You will notice that the bullet drop will dramatically increase after 300 meters, so you'll have to experiment for ultra long ranges on your own. But everything up to 300 meters I recommend you use the second bar for the static targets. The basic of all precise Halberd aiming is low vehicle mouse sensitivity. Now vehicle mouse sensitivity will affect how the main gun as well as Halberd and the turrets in this game respond. You want them to respond real slowly, so that you have to push your mouse more. Now why is that? Because often if you have really high sensitivity, your Halberd will go all over the place. You will aim over the infantry instead of at them, you know. You need to be able to slowly and precisely adjust your aim. Now personally I use the vehicle mouse sensitivity at 20 and scoped mouse sensitivity at 40. This will affect when you're zoomed in with the Halberd. Now it's up to your personal preference, but you definitely need to experiment with it a bit and put it to lower values, because default values are most likely going to be too much for you to handle. I hit him. Now the next thing I would like to mention about the Halberd is the positioning. Now if your prowler is on the flat ground, you can aim just straight ahead with no problems. But like you see, if the prowler is leaning towards one side, then your shots will be, you know, kind of carried away to one side, and you will need to compensate for that. As you can see, my shots are being carried to the right because the prowler is, you know, being pulled to the right by the uneven ground. That's why I'm forced to aim a bit more left in order to compensate for it. It's a weird feeling, I know, so it's best if your driver can park it on the flat ground, but if not, you'll just have to deal with it. Like you can see, I'm trying to compensate in this video. Hit. This here is the prime example of this leading. As you can see, my shots are going way off right of the crosshair, and I need to compensate a lot for it. Now, as said before, Halberd is really good at sniping infantry because it one-hits them, but that doesn't mean that it's actually good at multiple infantries closing in. That's where Marauder is actually way superior. But when it comes to killing lone infantry targets that don't really pose a lot of threat to you, then Halberd is a really good option. As long as you keep them from rushing your tank and have them close in too close, you're gonna be fine with a Halberd against the infantry. Also, when you're going, you know, for a bit of a farming in a big fights and you're just keeping your distance, Halberd is probably the best choice because it will allow you to stay at safe distance, and your gunner will wreck a couple of kills and you'll get to share the XP. Now take a look here. This is another one of the examples of how you're forced to lead if the target is both too far and you're aligned to one side. I mean, your prowler is pulling to one side. A lib. I think he crashed, might wanna go. Like I said earlier, in most engagements, the second bar from the top, which is the first one below the V-shaped one on the top, is the bar that you're gonna use in most engagements, and those are gonna be medium range engagements in most cases. Now, when it comes to really ultra long range sniping, you will have to use bars that are a bit lower than that, and even in between, in order to compensate for the gravity pull on the Halberd rocket. Experiment a bit at different ranges to get a feel for it, and after a while you'll get the muscle memory for it, and you won't have to be bothered by it that much.
So I got it.
Oh, another Thunder. You have... Yeah, don't you have... Yeah. Now, one thing I should mention is that Halberd has no recoil. That means if you see a deployed Thunder, take your time, experiment a bit, and try to land a shot. Once you land the shot, you're pretty much zeroed in on it. You don't have to move the mouse at all. You can just continue firing by clicking without needing to move the mouse. Now, this only works, of course, on static targets, but you get the picture. You're missing it. I see. Now, due to the high alpha damage, which means a lot of damage per shot, Halberd really works great when you manage to sneak up behind target. It can inflict massive damage in one shot, which is especially good against enemy lightnings and MBTs, like here. Got it. Now, Alpha Strike also comes into play when you are engaging a target using cover. Now, since you're doing more damage per shot, that means that you can actually output more damage than the fast-firing weapons, because fast-firing weapons need to land more shots, which you're having a hard time doing because you're using cover. As you can see here, we actually managed to kill a Mag Rider that used the Soren, even though the Soren has higher DPS than the Halberd.
That's low.
Lastly, what is really important using the Halberd is leading a lot when shooting at moving targets. That also works on aircraft and vehicles and infantry. You need to shoot in front of where your target is moving, depending how fast the target is moving. Of course, on air vehicles and ground vehicles, you will need to lead a lot more than on infantry, since infantry moves slower.
Knight Rider, 12.
Now, last thing I would like to mention is that Halberd is probably the best weapon when it comes to chasing down enemy vehicles that are retreating or fleeing from you. This is due to its high damage per shot, which means they cannot use cover that effectively, and due to the fact that you have really long range, so you can hit them even though they manage to get away from you. Now this is also demonstrated in this video. That's all for now, people. I hope you find this video helpful, and if you have any questions, leave them in the comments below. Bye guys, see ya. Ah, beautiful flip.